Guyana is a land of many waters. You never miss the water until the well runs dry. It never rains until it pours. Those are all truisms that affect us here in Georgetown more than many other places in Guyana and in the world. Honorable Minister, Mr. Chairperson, all distinguished invitees, colleagues, Dutch engineering students, media, on this very timely activity. I don't think it was an accident that we had such a downpour. The fact that it rained to the extent that it just did, and the resulting change in the water system or the water levels brings into sharp focus the importance of the information that will be transmitted today. In 2015, Georgetown, that's our capital for everyone who should know, suffered from a major flooding due to heavy rainfall. The combination of an old agricultural drainage system, which is used nowadays for drainage of the largest urbanized area of Guyana, poses problems considering flood safety. In 2016, a report was published by a Dutch risk reduction team. What we have here now is a follow-up mission, which consists of a team of 7 students who worked on the complete drainage system and developed several methods which can be used to analyze the system. This was done to increase the local capability of knowledge-based decision-making on a drainage system. The project consists of 3 parts, which together form the basis of the whole drainage system. The local drainage system, primary drainage channels, and outfall structures. The main case studies were all executed on the catchment area, South Rhine Belt. Now there's quite a lot more that can be said because I have a well-prepared brief. And if I sound very intelligent, please note it's not my words. I'm simply reading the brief that was given to me. But I can simply digress a bit from what is prepared here to say that Georgetown, as well as the rest of the coast of Guyana, can be considered to be in a valley. We have to the north the Atlantic Ocean that reminds us ever so frequently that we live below its level. Those of us who brave the seawalls in the afternoon will recount many occasions when you are soaked because of water that comes across the wall. And to the south, we have the highland regions, which seem to manufacture water, if I may use that phrase. It therefore means that to be able to simply have a normal, dry area to live in requires some use of technology and engineering ingenuity. And whilst we welcome the work that was done by the 7 students, and whilst we pledge to follow up on the new knowledge that we will have and operationalize things in such a way that we can fix what can be fixed, I would like to use my brief remarks to appeal to every citizen or passer through of Georgetown to do the things that can be done to not exacerbate the situation that's already existing. And I know every Guyanese and even the visitors will know that there seems to be a magnetic effect on garbage and canals, on garbage and drains. There seems to be something that draws garbage to drains, as if we have no control over it. And I'm urging everyone who's either here or who will be viewing this, okay, let us try to resist that magnet. Let us try to resist throwing garbage in the canals, in the drainage systems. Let us try to remember that not because you can't see it anymore, that is not there. And that car that you want to dispose of, and that fridge, and that washing machine, and that bag of garbage, if you throw it into the canal, it will block it. And it will make all the work that is done meaningless. So, I'm going to leave the technical stuff to the technical people. And I'm going to simply say that the most important thing that we can do after we fix the problems is to bring about change in our behaviors and respect the fact that it is we who caused the problem, got to live through it, and it is really unfair to blame anyone for our own bad actions. With those few very brief remarks, I would like to say thank you and wish you every success in the continuation of this process. And I know that the Honorable Minister will be taking note and copious notes of what's happening here, because the next step will be the financing of the fix. With those few remarks, I thank you very much.
As the previous speaker already announced, we are here as a follow-up mission of the DRR mission, which was present last November to assess the drainage system of Georgetown after a severe flooding due to heavy rainfall in 2015. We are 7 master students of Delft University of Technology, and we've been working partly for our curriculum for 2 months over the last 2 months on the drainage system of Georgetown in Guyana. We've been not doing this on our own. We had several partners here and also in the Netherlands, and I would briefly like to mention them. First, we have the National Task Force, who facilitates the project. And secondly, we have the 4 partners we had, who've been working with us throughout the project and helping it to become a success. We have the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority and the University of Guyana hosting us for work as well as accommodation. And we have the Ministry of Public Infrastructure and the Mayor and City Council who are actively involved in the project. Then from the Netherlands, we are supported by our own university, the Delft University of Technology, but also through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, by the Embassy of the Netherlands in Paramaribo, Suriname, the initiator of the original DRR project, but also by the previous DRR team, who supported us with advice. Last but not least, I would like to mention the advising company Coast Deltas and Rivers International, who is financially supporting this project so it could be made possible. Well, what we are set out to do here is help in a transition from an experience-based approach to a scientific approach on the drainage system. Honorable Minister Patterson mentioned it already in the start meeting, the first meeting, which was in the same room at the beginning of our project, and we were trying to have a contribution in this progress by, for instance, doing some hydraulic modeling, writing some manuals for hydraulic modeling, but also providing maps and tools, for instance, in the structural engineering parts of the drainage system. With these tools, we want to bring Guyana a step forward to make their own knowledge-based decisions on the drainage system and not only rely on the experience of the managers. So, where are we looking at? Well, as my previous speaker already said, we mainly looked at the example area of the catchment area of South Rhineland. It is marked in green below, as you can see here. And furthermore, in the project we used three elements. Our project team was also divided in 3 teams. We have the local drainage system, which you can see marked with black lines around it in the full catchment area. We have the primary channels. You can see the 2 most relevant ones for our project in blue. you see the South Rhineveld channel in the south and also the Liliendaal channel going to the north. And you have the outflow structures. And in our case, we mainly focused on the cokers next to the Demerara River. Well, and actually the system itself is quite simple. Certainly if we look at it in this image, you see rainfall flowing into the wards, into the housing areas, which is discharged into the first part, the local drainage system. Then through small tertiary and secondary canals flows into the primary channels, which discharge it to the system boundaries, by which it's discharged out of the system by outflow structures, either cokers or pumps. The most important thing we always need to remember, and it was mentioned before, is that Georgetown's drainage system lies below mean sea level, which means discharging, especially via cokers, can only happen during low tide. So we have 3 project parts, and they all delivered their own results. And the first project part was on the local drainage system. So here we're looking at one of the analyses they made. They did extensive fieldwork in the field of South Rhineveld, and they identified the different objects of the local drainage system. So what we're looking at here from top to bottom on the right is tertiary drains around the houses, secondary drains draining the local drainage system, and culverts connecting all the channels. What they did was make a schematization of an example drainage system, local drainage system in the area of South Rhineveld. So what you see here is the blue line, is the primary channel along Caneview Avenue in South Rhineveld, and you see one small local drainage system upstream of it. And then they started modeling, and they did that according to also actually a very simple principle. The model is based around the storage principle. It is based on a certain inflow into the local drainage system due to the discharge which comes from rainfall which falls into the housing area, and a certain outflow. And this outflow happens into the primary channels. But unfortunately this inflow and this outflow is not always the same, and when there's a difference, the water surface elevation inside the local drainage system rises or falls, depending on the difference. And this is what's called the storage principle. And based on that principle and the schematization I showed you before, they made a small model to get insight into such a local drainage system, also to emphasize the importance of this local drainage for the whole system as well. And this system, actually, this model had actually 2 major results. The first one is the delay, the calculation of the theoretical delay which lies between the inflow of rainfall water and the outflow into the primary channels. So what happens in the local drainage system between those 2 steps? You see that in the graph. You see the yellow line is the inflow into the local drainage system, and the green and brown lines, the single lines, they are representing the outflow into the primary channel via 3 culverts. The second result they had was some theoretical insight into the dynamics of the system. So you can see that on the top right, you see the sort of reddish net, and this actually represents the same schematization and shows some theoretical inundation times of the different areas in that small local drainage system. And what they can do with this analysis, and what we did, and is also reported in the final report, is test out the effect and the probability that something occurs during different scenarios or interventions. So I think they tested 5 scenarios, of which one, for instance, was cleaning the local drainage system. What is the effect on inundation times during heavy rainfall? The other effect they tried was what happens when we add an extra culvert. And in this way you can clearly state and see the dynamics of such a system, and also what is the effect of, for instance, neglecting the maintenance of the local drainage system. That was the project part 1. In project part 2, we focused mainly on the primary channels. And this project part is mainly focused around hydraulic modeling. And for this hydraulic modeling, we had to connect 3 kinds of data for the primary channel of South Rhineveld. The first data is the geometric data. What does the channel look like? How long is it? What are the dimensions of the bridge? All important factors affecting the conveyance and the discharge of the system. The second is the hydraulic data. That was mainly generated by actually the analysis that was done before on the local drainage system. So the influx of the local drainage system into the primary channels. And the third kind of data that was gathered was on the boundary conditions. So with that data we mainly look at, for instance, tidal elevation, or how long does it take to open a coker, or what is the influence of the Liliendaal pump station on other channels. Those are boundary conditions. Together, these three types of data form the basis for a hydraulic model, which we developed in the program, in the open source program Backcross. It's a one-dimensional hydraulic model, and as we made it, it currently schematizes the current situation of the Zuid-Rijnveld channel. But replicating only the current channel is not the main goal of such a model. The main goal of such a model is that it can be used for this earlier mentioned knowledge-based decision making. So what also is possible with this model is try to quantify and compare the effect of different interventions or scenarios in the primary channel. And to show you what kind of results such a model could give, we have prepared two scenarios to present for you during this presentation. The first you see on this slide. You see on the top right the addition of a storage area next to the primary channel. So in the model we put a storage area which can take up high water during high water discharges from the primary channel and therefore store it so that the system as a whole gets relieved. Well, this was put into the model, and with that two geometries that you use, the old and the new one, you can generate output graphs like this. What you see over here, and I'm not going to explain the whole graph, to get an insight in it, it's okay. You see the difference in flow and also in water surface elevation between the two scenarios. So actually you can see the red scenario is the old one and the green scenario is the new one. You can see a slight decrease in the highest water elevation at a certain cross section. And you see it happening over time. The second scenario we wanted to show to you is also another way of visualizing the effect of a certain intervention. And in this case, it's all about cleaning the channel. As you might have known, most channels here have vegetation in it, which grows often very fast. And there can be a significant difference between either not cleaning or either cleaning the channel. This is also an effect which can be modeled in Backcross by adapting the geometry. What I have here is a small movie, and you are seeing a side view of the channel in which these two scenarios are implemented. So in red, you see the scenario with a channel that has not been maintained, so not been cleaned. And in green, you see a channel, of our channel actually, with a scenario that has been cleaned. What you see also happening in this movie is also the boundary conditions. So you see the tide going up and down, the rainfall going into the system, the sluice opening, and if you look very carefully, you can see an effect of the pump of Liliendaal at the outer right end of the system. The small vertical lines you see represent the bridges and the structures in the system. So here you see the simulation going, and you see that the rain is going into the system right now. And you see a clear difference between the cleaned and the non-cleaned channel. So using this output, and for instance comparing it to the effect of adding a storage area, you can make a decision on what kind of intervention you would like to use. It has to be emphasized that this model can now be used for visualization of the effects, and we left behind a method to calibrate it during high water discharges. Unfortunately, the size of the shower we had just now, we're already approaching the dry season. So in the wet season it can be calibrated, and then it can also be used for quantifying the effects. Well, that was the second project part. We also had a third project part. Two of our group members are actually studying to become a structural engineer, and they focused together with the National Drainage Authority and the Mayor and City Council, especially on the cokers next to the Demerara River. These cokers are already decennial old, so the key issue in maintaining these cokers is the maintenance. And what they were set out to do was to help and quantify certain effects to get from a reactive point of maintenance, so maintaining the system when something goes wrong, to a preventive kind of maintenance, so maintaining the system just before something goes wrong. And of course this is a large step, but what they try to do, and you see the final result, a probable final result of their analysis, is trying to estimate the lifespan of different elements and see which element, when, has the highest probability of failure. And by examining that, according to a set procedure, you can therefore prioritize your maintenance actions, and you won't find any surprises. The probability that you find any surprises gets lower. Because they had such a clearly defined goal and a good relation with their stakeholders, they actually made a whole structural assessment tool out of it, in which data collection, inspection forms, and also objective assessment manuals, by which the state of the structure can objectively be assessed, are all included. So they tested it last week and did some adaptations, and from now on it can be implemented as well. So I see you all watching and seeing all these results, and we were asking the question to ourselves as well. Okay, we're making this nice final report containing all these 3 elements, but our whole goal is knowledge transfer and knowledge building in Guyana. So together with all our analyses, clear tools have been made and clear sheets have been made, but also manuals, for instance, for the implementation of the hydraulic model in other catchment areas in Georgetown or elsewhere, but also the datasets. They were all gathered in one folder, which is transferred to the relevant parties. And this is all done with the goal that the stakeholders here in Guyana can continue this work, for instance, in bachelor theses, as has been done at the University of Guyana, and start developing this knowledge themselves. To give a head start, a kickstart to that process, we, together with our partners, we organized 2 knowledge transfer days. They are tomorrow and on the 9th of September, so on Friday. And in these days, these 6 guys will give lectures and tutorials and all kind of interactive sessions to give a head start to this knowledge. Don't we have any recommendations then? Yes, we do. But also, these are mainly based on improving the knowledge of the system. So our recommendations can be subdivided in 3 categories, mainly on mapping of the system, which has been proven to be very important but also very effective. Improving the models, so the work that we have been done. I've been talking earlier about calibration during the rainy season. The models that we have made can be improved, and how to do that. And the last recommendations mainly focus on the use of the models and the tools, not only here in Georgetown, but also in other areas or other catchment areas.
All the students from Delft. I lived 5 years in Delft in the Netherlands. I know the university. I was working for a National Science Foundation there. You did a nice job. You helped the Guyanese. That was the aim of the embassy, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, to see whether you could help. I was always informed that the knowledge is here, but you can increase the knowledge. There is a lot of knowledge in Guyana, but you might have some possibilities of increasement. Water is a fantastic commodity. Only when it comes on the right moment, it's a flood and it's a problem. There's the same with grasses, no? Everywhere in the trenches we have grasses, but 2 major grasses in Guyana are rice and sugar. And without rice and sugar, we would have some problems. So it's all a matter of, is it at the right moment and in the right spot? Now that we have the knowledge, and now that you have shown the city as well as the country where you can further increase your knowledge, it all comes down to money. There's no other problem. If you have a bicycle and if you have a flat tire, yeah, you can replace the flat tire. But if you don't have the money, it becomes very difficult to get the tire So it's up to the Minister of Finance and Minister of Infrastructure to find the money, because the knowledge is here. I can only say that living in Georgetown over the last 20 years, the cleaning of all our waterways has helped me in Queenstown substantially. I made an infrastructure under the house, but it's no longer needed because the water level, even with floodings, is much lower than it was before. On the other hand, and that's the last thing, and then I'll give it back to the chairman. Last week I saw one of these studies of a United Nations organization saying that the Netherlands is the most dangerous place to live in Europe. Now, I was a little bit surprised. Then I checked it, why they called it like that. Now, if that is true, then Guyana is the most dangerous country in South America to live in, because it had to do with sea level rise. So we have a common problem. We have a common heritage of more than 200 years. We have a common problem. We're working together, and I hope that this is not the end of the cooperation. I really hope that we can continue with this cooperation. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, or esteemed guests from the Netherlands. I mean, this afternoon I'm extremely delighted to see the conclusion of this project that we have started. I can say without any doubt that I'm impressed with the students. I myself being an academic, and my interest would have been the quality, the method they have employed, and so on. So I want to publicly acknowledge that they did their work very well. And if, as a student, I would give you A+. Notwithstanding that, this afternoon I want to say publicly that the institution I represent, the University of Guyana, and more so, I'm from the Faculty of Technology, the Department of Civil Engineering, which is the point department with respect to flooding, anything hydraulic, and so on. We have been training people over the years. We have quite a lot here. The chief NDIA officer, we have the chief engineer from infrastructure. They are all product from the University of Guyana, and many others. We have committed ourselves to continue this process. We, in our own way, did some work, and as our colleagues from the Netherlands alluded to, that we were able to at least assist in furnishing some data and so on, so that this work could be completed as it is. We are going to continue this work. You would have noticed that he mentioned that we have to do some verification. We have to test the model and do things like that, improve it, and so on. The University of Guyana, being the primary academic institution here, is going to pursue and continue that work. As we speak, we have students, I've already identified some of my students, to look at the outfall at Kitty. So the subcatchment in the Ayangana area, for example, and we know there's always some problem with flooding, our student would be examining that this academic year, and some others. So we are well set, fully committed to continue the work started by our students from the Netherlands. So I want to assure you guys, and I mean, you always hear I'm very passionate about this, about our involvement in it. We are going to continue. And we also get some networking. So it could always surprise you, and we know how this work is going to make you feel comfortable that your effort would not be in vain. So that has been a public acknowledgement by me as head of department of the Civil Engineering Department. So I want to thank you guys for the work. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Guys, thank you for visiting Georgetown. Thank you for visiting Guyana. As soon as they came and we launched here, I was happy to covet them to the southern part of the city. I think we went around at a couple places around town. These guys work very, very hard, and I'm very impressed by that. And I'm very impressed that they're young people, so I can identify with them. As I was in the office early on, I was going through an old document, the Guyana Water and Sewage Master Plan of 1994, a document with tremendous information and insight. And I can appreciate the kind of work that you all undertook in our city. I think we have like 100 miles of just drains. And if you add the trenches and the canals, it's a lot of work to study. And as I said earlier on, I had the privilege to go with them when we were looking at some places in Kingston and get a real appreciation of how the waterways in our city is interconnected. I grew up hearing about the Dutch building the seawalls, and anytime the Dutch is mentioned, you know, it's always revered. And so to have you guys here was a tremendous privilege and a learning experience even for me about the city. I hope it's not the last that we see of you guys, that you come back and lend us your expertise at the other end when you would have graduated and probably go on to your PhD and all of that. Certainly our city can use your insight. You folks build the system, so please come back again. I was really, really impressed, and I'm looking towards reading the final product of your stay here. No doubt it'll be a tremendous blessing to the people of South, where I am a councillor from. Just last night we met with them, and they were honored that you guys came and saw the system and would have made your recommendation. And I'm really hopeful that the government follows through on whatever the recommendations are at central and at local government. Please come again, and as the Deputy Mayor and acting Mayor, I'll say this shamelessly. Please tell all of your Dutch counterparts to come and visit our city and to bring some more business here with you guys. Thank you very, very much. It was a tremendous privilege on behalf of the Mayor, on behalf of the citizens of Georgetown. Thank you very, very, very much. And please convey our thanks also to your substantive government and university. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sessional Chairperson. Distinguished guest, and most importantly to you wonderful students from Guelph University, engineers both from the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Mayor and City Councillor. Honorary Councillor, I think Mr. Trying to get your name, Mr. Benter Welly. I trust I got the pronunciation right. Witness the handing over of this, or the presentation of the final report of the Project Georgetown, which was conducted by you, the students of Guelph University. I must let you know, I guess, my senior minister, Minister David Patterson, he would have met with you and he would have given a synopsis or an overview of what this entire project, you know, what would be the government's expectation of this project. And if I may go back a bit, you know, we took office in May of 2015. You heard Mr. Jarvis alluded to that. When we took office, you know, the rains came upon us and the entire city was on the water, and we had, you know, we immediately established a task force unit comprising of the Ministry of Agriculture, the Mayor, City Council, and even the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, so as to address the whole flood issue here in Georgetown. And I must you coming out of that particular grouping, this whole, you know, sense of bringing you the students from Guelph University to give your input. And I must say, from the presentations done, it was well put together. And I can assure you that the government will not allow for this report to be placed on a shelf or a desk and, you know, to accumulate dust amongst other things. But we will use the report, and we would ensure that the recommendations put forward, such as the whole mopping, they talk about improving what we currently have, and I can assure you that those recommendations contained in the report will be effectively used, because we want to ensure that this whole situation with Georgetown being flooded is under control. So I trust, and I can say from the government's point, that we really appreciate, we're really happy that you came, you did the work, and these works will not be overlooked. We will ensure that they are put into practice so that we can bring some amount of alleviation to the whole flooding situation here in Georgetown. And allow me to say that I know, coming out from your presentation, you're expected to do 2 other presentations tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And I trust in your presentation, you made the point about knowledge sharing, and I can assure you that I trust that those who the knowledge will be impacted to, they will see the need to develop from what you would have shared in order to have this entire situation addressed. So on behalf of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Communities, we will work collaboratively to ensure that the whole flood situation is addressed here in Guyana. And as I said before, your works, the works put out by you, the student of Delft University, will not be overlooked. We will have those recommendations implemented. So on behalf of the government of Guyana, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, I just want to wish you all the best. Thank you for the hard work you would have put out thus far. I wish you God's richest blessings in your future endeavors. So once again, thank you, thank you, thank you.